Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's session. I'm so excited for today because we have some amazing special guests. And we're going to be talking with Rick and Yana. They're transformational marriage coaches and really beautiful souls, powerful people. And I love meeting new souls, as you know, and sharing their light with everyone here. And whether you're here with us from the Facebook group, I know there's about 1,200 beautiful queens in that group, or on LinkedIn or YouTube, wherever you're streaming from. We're really excited to have you join in this powerful conversation of conscious relationships. So Rick and Yana actually, they guide really busy, growth-minded women and couples to rediscover connection, fulfillment, and overall, love in their marriage by breaking those negative patterns, creating a healthy foundation, of course, which everyone needs in a healthy relationship, and really learning to have authentic communication. So honestly, I love this conversation of conscious couples, conscious relationships, because it's such a powerful and important conversation that is happening more so in, I'd say, the last 10 to 15 years. But there's so much to this conversation. So let's bring them on to start the conversation. Welcome. Hello. Thanks for joining us today and sharing yourself and all your wisdom. We're so pumped to learn more from you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us, Zarina. And you're such a beautiful soul. Just from being backstage, virtual backstage, and hearing you share, I'm like, oh, I'm so touched by who you are. And I'm excited to connect with you and to connect with your community, because I'm sure it's an incredible community. So hi, everyone.
Thank you. Yeah, it definitely is. Welcome, Rick. So you two are a couple, yes?
Yes.
We are a couple. Yeah.
So they're married, you're married in your own conscious relationship. And so you're really out to create and spread your light as a couple so that other people could have that experience as well.
Amen.
Yes.
It's amazing. So I would love to hear your definition of conscious marriage or relationship, because I feel like there's so many. I think it's very personal, but also since you are the experts, I would love to hear your explanation or your definition of it.
Awesome. Rick, why don't you start?
I was going to ask. So for me, and thank you so much for having us here. It's, just to be here and to be in your space and to be with your community. I'm just really present to the commitment that everybody has to connect and to travel on this path together and to ascend and to heal and to rise and to become or to remember who we already are. And I just really appreciate you and the space that you hold and your commitment and your song that you sing. I'm humbled and I'm blessed to be here, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Conscious relationship. For me, to be conscious in a relationship is really to understand that we have sort of two parts that drive our machine, right? On one hand, we have our default machinery driven by the ego and our need to survive, right? And it's okay, right? We've evolved for 200,000 years that way. I mean, that's how we got here, right? We had saber-toothed cats and, we didn't create a civilization until 4,000 BC or something like that, agriculture until 10,000 BC. And so we really just had to survive for most of the time that we've been walking around as bipedal, anatomically modern human beings. And so that's on one hand who we are. On the other hand, we're the spirit, we're the creator, right? Yeah. And we can be part of the super consciousness, and we can be part of the love that connects us all, and we can be aware of our co-created existence. And, be here in this moment, in this infinite, beautiful, loving moment where we really are conscious of the miracle of life and ourselves in this life. And so to be conscious is really to be in the seat of the creator. And so in a relationship, it's being conscious that I'm the creator of my relationship. That's how I view conscious relationship anyway, is really to be 100% responsible for not just my relationship, but my life.
Beautiful. And for me, I love that. And one thing that I also want to add, for me and what I've discovered on this journey being in a relationship with Rick and being on my own personal growth journey and evolution is, relating to my partner, to my relationship, to my marriage as an opportunity for growth, for healing, and that there is a bigger purpose, in my life of why I am with this person, of why we've come together. And I constantly relate to that purpose. I'm constantly present to that. There's something bigger than me, and something bigger that had us come together. So for me, a conscious relationship is really the relationship that you have to your relationship, and constantly checking in, in your heart, like what that is, and trusting and surrendering and so many things, to that higher purpose.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I remember it's such a distinct shift in relationship when you're like in an unconscious relationship, and then you have your first conscious relationship. You're just like, whoa, this is totally different, and just so special and sacred. But that doesn't mean that there aren't any challenges or issues or like things like that. It just, I feel like from my own personal experience, I just moved through those challenges with a lot more ease and grace and acceptance and simplicity, I would say, less complexity. But that's just my personal experience. So, but like there was this term that I experienced, which was conscious uncoupling. So I was in this conscious relationship and I knew that, it's time to end it. But I was like, how do you do this? Like, you develop such deep bonds and connections especially when it's, always, but you feel super connected when it's conscious. So I ended up doing this lot of research of conscious uncoupling and learning about it and then practicing that. But, is that part of what you teach as well, conscious uncoupling as well, or is it mostly conscious coupling?
I would say it's really about your conscious self. If uncoupling or coupling ends up something you discover on the path, then it's something that you discover on your path. I think that it's really all about healing yourself and rising and standing and being your song in life. And inside of that path, inside of that journey, whether you uncouple with the person that you're with or you stay together, it's really something that you discover through your heart, through your experience. So when we're coaching people, whether it's in a program or individually, it's really about whatever it is that resonates with your heart. And then in that space, if you uncouple or you stay together, then that's what or at least that's what I coach on.
Yeah. It's so fascinating because you can literally fall deeper in love as you're breaking up when it's a highly conscious uncoupling. So it's like breakups don't need to be this like intense, crazy, painful experience. It could actually really be beautiful, reconnecting to self, but which causes a reconnection with that soul that you're actually discovering you need to go separate ways. Not that is the focus of what you do, but I just wanted to share my own personal experience from when I discovered, even just being in a conscious relationship and then having to face this whole conversation of, conscious uncoupling too is a big topic. So anyway, so, the deeper we go into being in union with another soul, I feel there's a lot of discovery of like masculine and feminine energies, So how do you manage that? How do you support people, or what do you recommend in terms of that?
Can you say it again, in terms of discovering the masculine and feminine energies?
Yeah, like the I guess maybe the balancing of the two with the male and the female, and because we carry both. So how do you?
We just talked about it this morning, actually.
I love that conversation. Do you want to go? I
can go ahead. And actually, before we even get into that, I really wanted to say something about what you said about conscious uncoupling. I think in our like society or in our unconsciousness, we've learned that we either need to like be with that person in the way they are and the way they aren't. And you can also consciously, I would say, divorce the point of views that you have of each other. And like that is what I stand for and what I think that Rick and I have gone through in our own relationship. We went through transformation where it's like our old ways of being basically died. Like the relationship that we learned and inherited died. And we got to create a new relationship. So it's almost like we uncoupled, as the people that we knew ourselves to be in the past. And we got
Wow.
to create something new. And even like, I think we're going to be doing our 10-year wedding anniversary is coming up. And we've
Wow.
been talking about
Congrats.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But we've been really talking about how do we complete the last 10 years and the people that we were, not that there was anything wrong with it, but like the journey that we've been on, in the last 10 years, and how do we create newly who we are and what we are committing to each other, to our future, to our lives. So, it's not always necessary to go your separate ways, but if two people are actually committed to doing the work to really like create, to transform, it's really amazing what can happen, because you literally can heal and complete the old and create some, a relationship newly. I feel like we, as human beings, we have cycles, and in a relationship we have cycles as well. If both people are on that path together and if both people are aligned. So I just wanted to mention that, because
that's
is also
a big point.
another possibility and point of view that you can have about relationships.
Yes, you can definitely, especially if both people are in alignment and looking at the same focal point of growth.
Yeah.
I definitely see that for sure. You could absolutely shed the old relationship and create something totally new.
Yeah.
I love that, as especially as it relates to conscious uncoupling and then recoupling. I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
I think what's really great about what you're saying right now, babe, is that like it really points to the inherited paradigm of what, a relationship is, right? So what she's talking about is really uncoupling from that paradigm that we inherited. Because there's a view, right, that we have of what a relationship is or what it's supposed to be. And by default, it's a view that we all inherited or we learned. I mean, if you look around at your parents or your grandparents or uncles and aunts and friends' parents, I mean, think about all of the people that you had, that you looked at, that were the example of what it was to be in a relationship or what it was to be married, right? And you grew up learning a certain way of what that looked like or what it could be, right? And it's just something that you genuinely inherited. Yeah. Right. And so when we're in a relationship, we don't ever stop to think about what's the context that I'm in here that has me be in the relationship. Like what's possible in my view of marriage or of this relationship. And when you distinguish that, when you get present to that, when you sort of like observe the participant in the relationship, you can see that it's likely, most of us didn't have any evidence of a relationship ever really working out. Like not really, right? And then if you did, it was kind of like an anomaly.
Yeah.
Like here and there, but not everywhere and not most of the time, right? And so ultimately we've got that view of what's possible in a relationship that's really governed by what we've all inherited and learned, which is ultimately is probably not really going to work out. And so uncoupling from that view, distinguishing that view, and then what Yana's talking about is like really creating, what the relationship is for you as a creation, and then who you are for yourself and for your partner.
Yeah.
And that's the recoupling she's talking about.
I love it. I really see that relationship to the relationship piece being critical to having a conscious relationship.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And so just in terms of the masculine feminine conversation, I really appreciate this conversation because I think that, for, I don't know, patriarchy's been around for a few thousand years, right? And so there's, again, a paradigm that we inherited that we all have been operating under. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that, women were property in some parts of the world. And even in this country, couldn't vote or couldn't, didn't have a right to an education. I mean, there's still a disparity in income, right? I mean, it wasn't that long ago, glass ceiling, women's lib, like all these movements.
Yeah.
And so even in that conversation, there's an inherited paradigm that we've all been experiencing, and it's not just on a macro level; it's on a micro level. I mean, it's in your relationship too. So I think part of the conversation is really getting present to or distinguishing what's there for us by default. Like one of the things that Yana and I focus on a lot is having conversations about not, what the woman needs to be like or what the man needs to be like, but who we are as a couple, like who we are as individuals and as a couple, and what are we committed to creating, given our own superpowers.
Yes.
Right. And I think that in particular for myself, I think that this is a time for an ascension of the sacred feminine. I think that we're in a transitionary period right now, in our time. And I think there's an ascension happening. And I think
Absolutely.
that, it's time for that sacred feminine to rise. And, men or the sacred masculine are called upon to really hold that space for that to occur. Right. And by the same token, there's been a distorted masculine view. Right. Yeah. So 3,000 years of patriarchy. Right. And we think that we're the shit and that, our, the reason why we needed to get married was so that we can, keep our stuff. Right. That's what the original purpose behind marriage was, is to keep, I need to make sure that when I die, this land goes to my kin. So how are we going to do that? Well, my kin is going to have my name. And then that way, when I die, then he gets all my stuff, or she gets all my stuff. Right. And that was how that was created. And so now you've got men who, and I'm going to generalize a little bit, but like really think like, we're sort of, on top of the food chain. We're on top of all of it. And we've got the right to this and that and whatever. And honestly, I think it's a distorted view. And so I think now we're coming into a period where men have to heal that part. And, we really want to see our mothers and our sisters ascend. We haven't been taught how. We haven't been taught how to be a man and how to honor the sacred masculine fire that we burn, while at the same time honoring the magic and the intuition of our sacred feminine and holding space for that power to rise. And when you come together, I think it's a return to wholeness, right? When we both come together and we honor each other, where the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine get to be a unit, a whole, like yin and yang, but together. I think that's where the seed of, creation really springs forward into life. I think that's where the expansion of miraculous love happens. And I think that's where we're all headed. Sorry, I know that was a long answer, but I really think that.
No, I love it. You pulled me absolutely fully into the present. So thank you with your answer. It's beautiful. And so what I'm seeing is that what you're describing is that when the feminine, the woman, and the masculine, the man can come together in wholeness, it's really about balancing the inner feminine, the inner masculine, and like really healing the shadow masculine, healing the shadow feminine that we all have within us, right? And really igniting that divine feminine, divine masculine in its whole and completeness. So
sure.
So how do you support people to do that? To really connect inwards with their masculine and feminine, since we understand we all carry the masculine and feminine within us, right? The shadow aspects. Are there like activities that you give them? Are there your clients?
Well, we do the first part, because our work is largely transformational and spiritual, right? There's the first step is always distinguishing. So you have to awaken to that you have a default way of being, right? And it's working or not working, right? Usually not working. And people have to awaken to that part first. You have to see that, if you're a guy, right, and you're not talking to your girl because you don't think you have to because you come home from work and, maybe you're making most of the money and you feel like it's just not something you want to get into right now because you're stressed out and you just kind of want to hang and not get involved in another conversation about how she feels or what's going on. That part, when you really get present to it as men, you really realize it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work to stonewall her, not for what I'm committed to in my life. If I'm in a relationship and I'm committed to that relationship because I love her and I'm committed to her and I'm committed to my family, me stonewalling her because I get home from work and I'm tired and I'm stressed or whatever it is, because I just don't feel like talking, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because for her, right, she's not built that way.
Yeah.
When she stresses out, she seeks talk therapy. She seeks nurture. Like, that's her way. Right? Guys, when we're stressed out, we seek suppression and compartmentalizing. We want to distract ourselves and not talk. Women, kind of the opposite. So getting present to what's there by default, realizing that it really doesn't work for you to continue down that behavioral path and honoring what you're really committed to, even if you don't feel like it. Like, I think people think, to be in this relationship or to do whatever it is that I want to do, I have to feel like it. Like, I don't feel like going and doing that. Like, I don't feel like talking at night or when I get home, or I don't feel whatever. But feeling like it is not a prerequisite.
No.
People think it is.
Yeah, that's not how we create successful businesses or work out, like accomplish our physical goals. Totally. Definitely not our spiritual goals either.
I know. Like, it's just not possible, right?
Yeah.
Like, if I don't feel like eating healthy or whatever, it just is not a prerequisite.
Yeah, but people don't have that relationship to their marriage most of the time, or to their relationship, because we have it. First of all, there's so much shame and like guilt attached to it because we think that we should know how to do it. Like, it's something that we saw our parents do and they, survived it, and our grandparents, and like, people do it. It's such a common thing. It's not like, I don't know how to run a business, so let me go and like get support and learn how to run a business. Or even out, like, I want to learn the right things. We don't relate to relationships like that until there is something that, is going down where you're like at the brink and you're desperate and you are seeking help. There's very few people that are like, oh my God, my relationship is good, but I want it to be amazing. So let me like really, take it to another level. I meet very little people that are in that mindset. Yeah. We take it for granted. We just are like, it works, until one day you wake up and you're like, actually, it doesn't work. Like, I don't like my partner. We're barely talking. I feel so disconnected from him. I don't understand what happened.
Yeah.
What happened is, if you don't actually put the work in and you don't put your sacred time and energy into it, you're gonna, one day feel disconnected, and it's just kind of obvious, but most people don't look at it like that.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely meet a lot of women, mostly because I work with women, but I definitely meet a lot of women in that complacency, like just accepting what is. This is just as good as it's going to get for now. I'm just dealing with it. And they don't realize like their anxiety at work, their anxiety or depression in their life is directly connected to their inability to create healthy boundaries or, speak their truth with their partner or just have those uncomfortable conversations. So I definitely see that a lot. And it's, again, from the coach and the healer side of it, we're always like, well, it's clear as day, but that's why we do what we do, right? That's why we work with clients. So,
and I think that, what Yana's talking about, what we're talking about is this like reality that we're not really, like, there's a veil, and like the way we view reality is through the veil, and we never even realize that we've got a veil on.
Totally.
Like, it's just how we're going through life. And then we think that, your relationship or your kids, like, it's okay if they're a responsibility and a burden. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Or if you're not feeling really, good in your body because you're eating junk food or dairy or meat or whatever, and all of that is fine. But if you don't feel good in your body, and it's just, it's just the way it is. Like, we go through tolerating mediocrity in our lives, like really not being present to how magnificent this can all really be. Like, if we just, I was asked once, by a coach that I had years ago. He said, Rick, how good are you willing to have your life be?
Mm-hmm.
And dude, that question blew me away.
Yeah.
Because I knew right away when I was thinking about the answer that my answer had a ceiling.
Yeah.
Because no matter what, there's a ceiling. I can't imagine my life better than X. And I think where we are most of the time is we're good with this mediocre,
Yeah.
burden that we carry in life, and it's just the way that it is.
Yeah,
But
we're striving for the ceiling. We're like busting our butt to get to that cap ceiling, and we're like, wait, it could be a million times better than that. Blow that apart and really
totally
expand into like the entire infinite possibilities of the universe.
Yeah.
This is a beautiful. And it's so true. And it's so true. So many people are dealing with this. I mean, in so many areas of life, not just relationships, but definitely, especially in the last year and a half, 2 years, relationships has been a hot topic because of all of the different circumstances we've all had to navigate together, right? As a collective. So I'm curious as it relates to this. So like, what are some type of blind spots that hold us or hold people back that are stuck in their relationships? Like if there's maybe holds them stuck in their relationships. Yeah, that's the question.
I actually just recorded like a video on this, posted on my social media, but like one of the biggest blind spots that we have is this invisible checklist of expectations and shoulds of how our partner should be or shouldn't be, and how much we focus on that all the time. We never really create what we truly desire. We just learn somewhere along our lives of, this is not safe, this is safe, this makes me feel loved, this doesn't. And it's like on and on. And it's in every area of life, how he should show up physically or she should show up emotionally, personality. Do I like funny or do I like not funny? All of these check boxes that we have. And then when we're in a relation and we have it, like we're right about it. Like it's such a, kind of like all of these unconscious beliefs that we just have it as the truth. So we are in a relationship and we're constantly judging our partner for the things that we think he should be or shouldn't be. And then when he's not being those things or doing those things, we resent him for it instead of, communicating it, instead of making requests, instead of just really choosing to accept it or not accept it, whatever it is. Like we're at the mercy and we're victims to these checklists. So that is, I think, one of the biggest blind spots that we have in a relationship is being right about, our point of view and how our partner should or shouldn't be. So, there's so much more. Is there anything that you can add to that? Like,
for sure. Well, Yana nailed it. There are expectations everywhere. I mean, everywhere. And we don't even notice them, right? And those expectations, when they're not met, they become complaints. And then they become recurring complaints. And then that becomes the context for our relationship and for any area of our relationship that we're in, but we don't see it. I'll give you a really good example. Yana and I are about to celebrate our 10-year anniversary this Friday, right? And so by default, if it's not distinguished, it really means something.
Yeah.
Like we've been married for 10 years, right? Like that means something. We can go celebrate and we can be whatever. And we can, we got a badge that says 10 years, and, but like it means something. You've been married 20 years. Well, that means something, right? In 30 years. And like that really means something. But if you really think about it, it really doesn't. You create your relationship every single day. And unless it's distinguished, what's already there, what's there, you inherited, your view, your expectation, whatever it is, it's all autopilot. So for us, one of the conversations, like before we got married, we were like, okay, what's here by default? Before we got married.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's just another It's just another wedding, or it's just another, like, what's already here? What are we expecting? And the first thing I came in and I said was, and this is actually part of our program that we have, which I mentioned earlier, which we call the big lie. I don't have any evidence that any relationship has ever worked in my life, and I don't have any faith that ours will either.
Yeah.
It was like, oh my God, me too.
Yeah, I literally said this to my partner too.
And then it was like, okay, what are we going to create? What's the impact of that? And so blind spots really are about really being open to discovering what you don't know, right? Like, we have a view of like everything that you know, right? Let's say there's a circle, and everything that you know is inside that circle, right? And if I were to ask you, what do you know, right? If all knowledge in the universe is inside that circle, what do you know about that knowledge, right? Like, how much of it do you know? And maybe it's like a little slice, right? Mine is a little tiny little dot, right? And then if I ask you, okay, so what do you know you don't know? You'd have maybe another slice. Mine is bigger than my original dot, right? And then all the rest of it is what you don't know. And so to go to work on what you don't know, it requires shifting your paradigm. And you've got to realize that you're in a paradigm by default. And your paradigm right now is governed by your complaints. So if you really want to go to work on your blind spot, look at what complaints do you have. Like, literally, you can write them out. They're not that many, actually. You'll find out, like, if you start writing down all your complaints that you have about your partner, you think it's a long list, but it's not really that long. It's probably like top 5. Top 5 will be most of it.
Right.
And then that's your view. And you want to go to work on that view. You have to get present to the complaint and what's the impact. Right? Because there is an impact. There's an impact on you. There's an impact on your partner. And there's an impact, if you have kids, there's an impact on the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on the connection, for sure.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's so true. And this is so powerful, because when couples start to actually co-create together instead of going from default, oh my goodness, the connection, the beauty, the depths of beauty, the depths of love, like, wow, I can't even describe from my own small, humble experiences, of being in conscious relationships. So I can only imagine what it must feel like to be going through in your long-term conscious relationship. I'd love to hear more about your story together, and how did this all occur, or what was your process together? How did you meet? All of that. Give us the juice.
I know, huh?
Yeah.
Do you want to get the juice, or should I start?
You start. I've been talking a lot.
Yeah, I want to hear the female version and then the male version.
I mean, I will tell you.
There's two. They're always two.
They're, Rick and I, we started out like just having fun. And when I met him, I was like, this is not going to work out. Think about it. Don't fall in love with me. There's just, Rick was the same place. He was like, no, we're not going to be together. And for about 6 years, we were in this this back and forth, breaking up every other month relationship, doing our own work of healing ourselves. But we were very much attracted to one another. But we had this idea, like, this isn't really going to work out. Like, we were literally in a relationship, dating one another, and, living in the big lie and having it be real. And, just like a little background, I was engaged before, like Rick was married before. Like, it was just not something that we, had any evidence. And then, we're from different cultures. So on top, that was in the background, because I had this point of view, like, I'm not going to be with somebody outside of my culture. And just so many other things that, where he didn't check off the boxes. So I was like, I'm just going to have a good time. Luckily we were guided on the path to really do our own, work, and to heal, and to really focus on like discovering and creating our own lives. And then there was a point where we actually split up we consciously uncoupled for a few
Wow.
months, and really like went to a place of what is it that that I want. I mean, I went to a place in my life, and also, no matter what, how do I find that joy and happiness and fulfillment in my heart, where I know that I am loved no matter what. And I ended up not dating, not doing anything, and really focusing on my own healing, and discovered that I wasn't loving myself. I wasn't honoring myself in all those years. I didn't even know what it was to love myself, to honor myself. I didn't have a connection with a higher power. Like, I didn't believe in God. I was so like disconnected from source, from myself. So that was the path that I went on. And when I really discovered that relationship with God and with myself, it didn't matter if Rick was going to be in my life, or relationship, or if I wasn't going to be in a relationship. It was all okay. And I got to this place in my heart of like peace and surrender. And in that place, I got to really create what I wanted, rather than being in this constant relationship where like he needed to prove to me that he loves me by telling me that he's going to marry me one day. That was like our big, I was like, when are you going to propose to me? We've been dating for this many years. When are you going to propose? And when I got to that place of really being okay with whatever happens, and really getting how loved I am no matter what, like that God loves me, that I am, divinely guided always.
Yeah.
I actually reached out to Rick, and I told him, hey, I want to, complete whatever there is to complete, or like, I just want, because I was just in such a peaceful place. And luckily he, during that time, also was on his own path of healing and his own journey. And he realized that he wanted to, create a family in his life. Also, like, with or without me, that's what he was ready for in his life. So, yeah, so it was like when we saw each other, there was no attachment. There was no, like what was supposed to happen. And that night we were like, let's just be together. Like, we are whole, complete, and perfect as individuals, and we love each other. So why don't we, get married and create a family together? And it was like so unlike of what I thought it would be. But it really was, very powerful. And that's what I think, like, our path since that moment has been, is really like creating and creating and creating.
And then you started working together.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Yeah.
I hope I told your side of the story. And
now what's your version, Rick?
I'll make it short. She nailed it.
Yeah.
For like, it's just, the beginning was difficult for me. I was married and I had an affair, and I married my high school sweetheart, and it was really difficult for me to go through that. The impact on her of my being a coward in our relationship was something that was really significant for me. And when we split up, I actually went back to her, and I was like, hey, can are we ready to work on this or no? And if not, then let's and she was like, no. And so anyway, we divorced. And it was, for me to like go back into a relationship and get married, it just wasn't anything that I was willing to do. So when Yana and I started to get closer, and she was like, hey, are we going to? And I was like, I said, I'm not ready to get married. I'm not ready to have a family. I said, and I think you should go. If that's what you want, if that's what you're ready for, then you should go and get that, because I'm not ready right now.
Yeah.
And I said, but what I will say is that, if we split up, that I will do the work of understanding why, like what that is.
Yeah.
So she called my bluff, and she was like, cool, I'm out. Right. And she left. Right. And we split up. She was doing her thing. And I'm like, what the F am I going to do now? And so like, I did like, I literally, like I read Carlos Castaneda when I was, growing up, like in my teens, 18, 19, 20, that kind of thing. And he's a cultural anthropologist. He learned from a Yaqui Indian, and it's like self-development kind of stuff, like Don Miguel Ruiz or Paulo Coelho's The Alchemist, or, James Redfield, or all these other guys, right? Gary Zukav. So I read him, and in one of the books, this guy goes to this place called Ixtlan in Mexico, and it's where he finds himself. Like, he really discovers who he is, right? Like, not as a man of God, right? As a being, right? As a sentient being. So I was like, I'm going to go do that trip. So I go to Oaxaca in Mexico, and then I end up meeting by myself, right? I'm like, I'm not going to be with women. This is me by myself. And I went, and I'm with a shaman, and I go into Temazcal, and then like I come out, and I'm like, oh my God. I started to hear spirit speak to me. Like,
did you do plant medicine? What did you do?
I didn't do any plant medicine. It was just Temazcal, right?
It was just the space. It was just the land.
Yeah, so it's like a sweat lodge.
Oh, right? A sweat lodge. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, but it's called in Mexico, they call them temazcals. So it's like a little oven, and it was just me and this little shaman, and we both got naked, and we're in there, and he's singing, and I start to have visions in this whole thing. Like, it was really incredible.
Yes.
And then it came out, and spirit was just so loud for me that I really heard this voice, and I really saw that what was there for me was I didn't want to become like my dad.
Yeah.
I didn't want to feel like I was like selling out on who I am, because I was going to be handcuffed to a wife and 2 children, where I was going to have to provide and be this whole other way instead of me being me. And that was my fear. And I didn't know that. And I didn't know how to say that to my ex. And I was really a coward about it all. Right.
Wow.
And so when I distinguished that, I was like, oh my God, so I can let that go. And am I ready for a relationship or not? And in that moment, not that moment, but in the moment where I got it, I realized that I was ready for one. I was ready to experience that part of life, that like conscious relationship and conscious family, like as a creation, not as what it's supposed to come next. And so when I came back from Mexico, that's when, I approached Yana, and that's when she was like also approaching me. Like, it happened at the same time. And so when we talked, I said, listen, I want you to know that I'm ready. And I said, it's with or without you. Cause she was like, well, I think I'm going to go to Spain now and teach for a year. And I was like, that's awesome. You should go, but I'm not going to wait for you to come back. Like, I'm ready. Like, I'm really clear that this is my path and this is something I'm going to pursue. So then when I said that, she was like, oh, okay, well then I'll stay. So then we created our relationship. We created our marriage. I was even writing like emails to my unborn daughter, and I called her Dominique because we joked around that like, hey, one day we'll have a kid and we'll call her Dominique. And she's like one of the major characters in a book called The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand. Amazing book.
Wow.
And anyway, so that's just kind of how it went. And then in 2005, as I was going through all of this in my first marriage, it's when I really I really started to focus on self-development. And and then that just became the path. And so ever since then, between that and then Yana and I both did, she really studied with Alison Armstrong. And then we Dr. Matt James, who's a neurolinguistic programming guy. And then we have a coach who's, doctor and therapist. And she's been my personal mentor for like 13 years. And then plant medicine started about 4 years ago. And it's just been this path of like really embracing, who I really am and who we really are. And it takes something. It's not like the walk of life isn't easy. It's a challenge. Because doing that shadow work and always coming to really be ready for whatever the healing is that I'm brought to in this moment than it is for me. So all the things that happen in our lives, for us to go from this isn't happening to us, this is happening for us.
Yeah.
And how do we really cultivate what that is? How do we bring it out and, really grow from it? And so that's been our path, and that's how we got here. Yeah.
What a beautiful story. Wow. And it sounds like it's just beginning.
Yeah.
Like you're really just opening up like a beautiful lotus flowers together and just blossoming.
Thank you.
And sharing and spreading your beautiful light and all of the wisdom and ancient teachings, or ancient medicines rather, that you're discovering and bringing the wisdom and voice of source, as you put it, into these programs or client teachings and everything that you're really bringing forth to the conscious couples that are emerging. I feel like people are really waking up, absolutely, on this planet, especially to what you've touched on, the feminine rising, right? Like it's happening within the male and the female, but also in the corporations and the businesses and the consciousness of communities and families. And it's everywhere. And it's really a beautiful thing that we get to be a part of when we're really conscious about it and looking from that lens, like you said. So thank you. Is there anything you'd like to leave our listeners with before we end? This has been so magical and really an honor to know you both and to have you here and sharing. There's lots of comments saying that they're loving this. Thank you so much. Somebody shared that Ayn Rand is one of their favorite writers and philosophers, if I'm even saying it right. Yeah. So and you named some, like Gary Zukov, and many of the ones you named I'm definitely adore as well, like some of the authors and writers, and so many powerful, like we're always passing on consciousness, right? Like we awaken to the conscious stream of thought that is already all around us. And we're really opening up ourselves to what has been passed down for however many centuries and millennia. So it's like we get to be these beautiful teachers, but really, like you said, everything is happening for us to step into our sacred service and our soul's light. And, we get to serve just from shining our soul light, which is really just our own awakening, which is so beautiful. So beautiful. It's like my favorite conversation. It's my favorite thing to just really ponder on, is like how magnificent this life is, that our own healing and journey and experiences and trials and tribulations and challenges and falling flat on our faces and getting back up and, soaring to new heights that we never thought possible to be even a reality yet. We couldn't even imagine it yet. It wasn't even something we had fathomed yet. And now we're standing on the edge of this cliff of thought, or feeling into the edges of our own reality and how far we can push this thing. How big can we get it? How much better can it get?
Beautiful.
When every day feels like a dream for the most part. That is a true blessing. So very, very grateful for all the light workers and all the beings that are sharing their awakening as a service, as their sacred service. So
for sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. How can everyone connect with you if they want to reach out, if they want to, receive some of your guidance and wisdom?
Yeah. So on Facebook, we actually have a community called Conscious Married Community. You don't have to be married. You can be in a committed relationship. We just, but definitely join us there. And actually, you're going to be coming on tomorrow in there. So I'm excited.
Yes, we're going to be talking all about
that's awesome.
Sex magic.
I can't wait. I can't wait. Yeah. And then, just message me on Facebook. Rick is not as active on Facebook, so you might not get his responses as quick, but definitely feel free to DM me. I love human connection. I can send you to all my social, and I just love that human connection. So I'm always open to any messages and then supporting you in any way that I can. But also on Instagram, it's themarriage.coach. So yeah.
So marriage.coach on Instagram.
Themarriage.coach.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. So we're going to make a post of all your social links anyway after this. And of course, if you're on this is inside the Facebook group. So if you're not inside of Queen Rising Facebook group, you definitely want to be there because a lot of all of your socials are going to be there. And then we also send out an email with all of that as well. So super pumped, excited to see where your relationship goes next, and and to hear all about all your growth and how you're spreading your light. I'm sure we're definitely going to have you back. So thank you again. It was a pleasure to meet you. Thank you. Love you, love you,
Yeah.
love you.
Love you too.
Yeah. Have an amazing day. Thank you for sharing your life.
Yeah.
Bye.
God bless you all. Thank you so much. Bye.